Hello, this is Bishop Manigault. Welcome to Bishop's Corner. Thank you for stopping by today. Last time I was before you, I encouraged you to learn how to thrive in the thralls of the struggle. Thrive, not survive, and overcome the thralls, which is the battle of the struggle. The struggle being the fight we wage daily against the world and a culture that is constantly trying to make us into its own image and into its own likeness. Last week, we saw one of the ways to thrive is to decide who you will bow before and who you will worship or obey. We must only bow before the Lord our God, and we must worship and obey only Him and none other. Continuing this thought, let's look at what else is needed in order to thrive in the thralls of the struggle. In Daniel chapter 1, you will see that this is not the first time that the Hebrew boys were caught between the world's requirement and the Lord's commandment. When they first came to Babylon, they were apportioned meat and drink from the king's house, but refused to eat this apportionment. They requested to be allowed to abstain from eating the king's portion. In that case, they had an option of not eating it, and they took it. If you check the record, Daniel and the Hebrew boys had been successful, in this case, in avoiding a confrontation with the culture of their society. They did this by wisely following and obeying God and navigating the treacherous waters of political and societal intrigue by their obedience to Him. With the setting up of the statue, however, in chapter 3, they could not avoid the culture. So in that case, they had to contradict the culture of their society. And they did that by wisely obeying God and being willing to suffer the consequences of the political and societal intrigue of their day. Sometimes you see you can avoid the conflict with the culture by just following God. Other times you can't. At some point in your walk with the Lord, you will be called upon to choose between compromise with the world versus complying with the Word. Let me say that again. Sometimes in your walk with the Lord, you will be called upon to choose between compromise with the world versus complying with the Word. Consider very carefully and decide very diligently what you should do when this call to compromise comes to you. You see, my brothers and sisters, the world is constantly trying to get us to compromise. So we must learn to resist and do as the Hebrew boys did. And what did they do? Hold on to the truth, no matter what the consequences. This now does get a little tricky. Not every attempt by the world to compromise our walk with the Lord carries dire circumstances. As an example, suppose a co-worker came and asked you to lie for them. They left work early and want you to cover for them if asked by your manager what time they left. You can choose not to lie without dire consequences because in this case, they are your coworker. All you risk by not compromising is having a coworker who's angry with you. But you see, even in this case, where you find that the temptation to compromise is very great, even when there is very little to lose. That is the nature of compromise. The temptation to compromise begins when we decide to hold true to what is right, with the knowledge that by doing so, we place ourselves in harm's way for retaliation or retribution, and possibly even more severe forms of recrimination. So even when there's not a lot to lose, the temptation to compromise is there, but it's easier not to compromise when there's not a lot to lose. The problem is that that's not all there is. The more we have to lose, the easier it becomes to compromise. So suppose it was your boss that asked you to lie for him. He left work early and wants you to cover for him when asked by his manager what time he left. What is at risk in this scenario is much more than just a relationship with a coworker. You now risk having your boss angry with you. So you see, my brothers and sisters, there are times in life when telling the lie seems to be a better option than telling the truth, but it never is. By telling a lie, we hope to avoid the pain, the shame, the hurt that often accommodates telling the truth. In weighing the consequences between telling the lie to telling the truth, We sometimes deceive ourselves into thinking that we can tell the lie without there being dire consequences. This is the subtleness of compromise. If we cannot hold to the truth in the small things, what makes us think we can hold to the truth in the big things? If the Hebrew boys had given in on eating the king's portion, a small thing, it is not likely they would have had the wherewithal or even the mind to stand against the king's command to bow before the image or die, a big thing. The Hebrew boys were prepared to face the rage and the judgment of the king rather than compromise their faith in their God. That's how they were able to thrive in the thralls of the struggle. Their example is in stark contrast to the lukewarm, half-hearted, politically expedient positions many of us who call ourselves Christians hold today. My brothers and sisters, we are called to stand against what is wrong in the small things and the big things. As an example, as a Christian, I'm not just for the idea that marriage is between a man and a woman, a small thing. I'm against the idea that it can be anything but that. And in our culture, to be against that is a big thing. As a Christian, I'm for the idea that there is a fundamental difference between men and women. What used to be a small thing, not so sure anymore. But I'm also against the idea that sex and gender are just a social construct that can be changed at any time. This, in our day, is a very big thing. But if we won't stand fast in the small things, we have no hope and no chance of doing so in the big things. And we will not thrive. We will not even survive the thralls of the struggle if we do that. So what am I saying? We must do as the Hebrew boys did and hold on to the truth, no matter what the consequences. It is holding to the truth and resisting the urge to compromise the truth that will enable us to thrive in the thralls of the struggle. It is obeying the commandments of God instead of the requirements of the world that will enable us to thrive in the thralls of the struggle. Well, it looks like my time is up for now, but I do thank you for yours. Thank you for stopping by, and I'm looking forward to sharing some more about this the next time. But until then, may God bless you and keep you is my prayer. Till next time, bye-bye.